Good morning. This hearing will now come to order. I'm pleased to welcome our distinguished panel of witnesses today to share with the subcommittee their perspectives on the expanding opportunities, challenges, and national security threats in the Arctic and how the Coast Guard can shape its Arctic strategy to best protect U.S. interests in the region. The changes occurring in the Arctic are monumental. For the first time in living history, receding sea ice is opening up an entire ocean to the world. This provides access to previously unreachable natural resources. Estimates are that 30% of the world's undiscovered natural gas, 13% of its undiscovered oil, and an abundance of rare earth and other minerals exists in the Arctic region. It opens up formerly impassable maritime traffic routes that are thousands of nautical miles shorter when compared to using the Suez or Panama canals, potentially saving shippers weeks in travel expenses. There is a whole realm of economic opportunity that didn't exist 10 or 20 years ago, and other nations have already taken major steps to capitalize on this prospect. We can see Arctic nations like Russia, who have built up ports, icebreakers, maritime traffic infrastructure, and ice-hardened shipping vessels to expand their commercial activity in the Arctic. Even non-Arctic nations like China are making major investments in Arctic development. They are building icebreakers and vessels capable of operating in the high latitudes, even though they have no sovereign territory near any Arctic waters. The U.S., one of 8 actual Arctic nations, has lagged behind in developing the infrastructure needed to meet the challenges and opportunities brought on by this expanding economic opportunity. We only have one operational heavy and one medium polar icebreaker. Compare this to the growing fleet of over 50 Russian icebreakers, and they're building many more. And even China's icebreaking capacity will surpass ours by 2025 or earlier. The nearest Department of Defense strategic seaport is 1,500 nautical miles from the Arctic. That's like putting our Coast Guard resources in Miami and asking them to respond to distress calls in Boston. The level of infrastructure development, domain awareness, hydrographic mapping, and reliable communications are far from sufficient to support the current and projected maritime traffic through the region. Overcoming these hurdles will take a whole-of-government effort, working with industry, NGO partners, Arctic communities, and strong international cooperation to enable the safe flow of commerce and protection of the natural Arctic environment. A key component of the U.S. government's strategy for managing the changing landscape in the Arctic is the U.S. Coast Guard. The Coast Guard has long been at the forefront of Arctic operations. They have been leading heroic rescue missions there for more than 150 years, including the Overland Relief Expedition in 1897 that saved the lives of 265 whalers iced in at Point Barrow. Recognizing the vital service the Coast Guard provides to our nation, I'm pleased to announce today that my ranking member, Senator Markey, and I have formed the Senate Coast Guard Caucus, along with a number of other senators who will come together in a bipartisan manner to bolster and strengthen this important branch of the armed services. I'm very glad about this, and to be honest, I'm quite surprised that there was no Senate caucus prior to today, so that's good news. I'm continually impressed with the valiant actions of the men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard and look forward to the great work this newly formed caucus will do to support their service. We are making progress, slowly but surely, on many of these Arctic issues. The Coast Guard, for example, in April of this year, released an updated Arctic strategic outlook that laid out their lines of effort for meeting the challenges of increased maritime activity in the region. Those lines of effort will include enhancing their capability to operate in the Arctic, cooperating with partners and allies to uphold rules-based order in the region, and innovating new solutions to provide crisis response, law enforcement, and maritime transportation management. The Coast Guard also awarded a contract for the construction of up to 3 heavy icebreakers, the first new heavy icebreakers to be built by the United States in over 40 years. These are part of the 6 new icebreakers authorized by Congress in last year's NDAA, a bipartisan provision in that bill that I was proud to have authored. Getting these icebreakers is an important step in the right direction for building our capacity to operate in the Arctic, but we need to do more. Just yesterday, the full committee of the Commerce Committee passed the Arctic Shipping Federal Advisory Committee Act, which is another important step with regard to our Arctic strategic interests. I will also soon be introducing legislation to further advance the collaboration between the Navy and the Coast Guard to increase their effectiveness for carrying out sustained operations in the Arctic. This bill will direct the strategic focus, infrastructure investment, and capability development needed to rapidly respond to crises in the Arctic, to secure our sovereignty through persistent presence in this region of increasing great power competition. And part of the reason for this hearing is to help inform that bill as we're putting the final touches on it.